In this video, we're going to be talking about the last component of the entire framework of gymnastics, and this is the magical experience. Now, we have three main things, okay? We have attention, behavior, care, all right? And what you need to understand with attention, behavior, care is this. With attention, you have three areas that the brain associates attention to. You have either habitual attention, you have the cost-reward form of attention, or you have pleasure. And what I mean by this is as simple as this. When you get hungry, that's habitual attention. Your brain goes, I'm hungry, and then it puts the attention on your hunger, and you go find food. The cost-reward form of attention is the question of how much is it going to cost me to get what I want. And this is kind of where people talk about motivation being external, where if someone says, okay, well, I'll pay you $100 to dig a ditch, you ask yourself, well, is digging the ditch worth it for the $100? It's a cost-reward relationship. If the cost is more than the reward, you're not interested. So the reward has to outweigh the cost in order to get somebody in a cost-reward situation. This can be handing out prizes. If the prize does not value the effort, then most people won't even pursue the prize. They're like, I don't care. What does it matter? And then you have just straight-up pleasure. And pleasure is literally like, do I like ice cream? Yes, so I just eat it. And so you're just chasing pleasure. And so inside of this, you have habitual for gymnastics, for what we're chasing after, okay? Habit, you can just think of as a name. Or you can think of loud sound. Okay? There's so many other ways to drive attention through habit. You just clap your hands, you'll get attention. You just shout loudly, you'll get attention. You say somebody's name, you'll get their attention. You talk softly, and all of a sudden you'll get everybody's attention. Sometimes I don't even talk, I just use sound effects and I go boopity boop boop, deep deep, and everyone's like, oh, what's going on? You get their attention. Getting the attention, okay, whether it's through habit or cost. Cost is what's the reward, okay? So making a reward happen, or diminishing the cost and saying, well, there's not much of a reward, but the effort is less. Well, that sounds interesting. I like that too. Or giving people what they want, okay? What do people want? They want to flip. They love flipping. So just give them the opportunity to flip, and all of a sudden you're going to have their attention. You say, hey, does anybody want to flip today? And everyone's like, yeah, I do. Attention. Who wants to do a flip today? And all of a sudden you got attention. And so attention, grabbing their attention, is paying attention to how, okay, people put their focus on things. Now, the interesting thing about attention is this. Attention is not me putting my focus on something. Attention is my willingness not to be distracted by other things. So if I'm distracted, it's letting you know what I'm attentive to. And then once you can pay attention to what people are distracted by, you can instantly go, that's what their attention is on. You can pivot and get them to come back to you, because now you can address that issue, but make it in front of them where you are. And so you can watch people do flips and you go, oh, do you want to do flips today? The person's like, yeah. You got their attention. We're going to do doggy drop front flips. Oh, cool. You get their attention. Behavior is environmental influence. Now, this is more about the actual space around you. If I'm walking through my gym and there's a beam right in front of me, I'm going to walk around the beam. Probably not going to go under it. I'm probably not going to go over it. I'll just walk around it. So the object that's in my space dictates how I behave. It didn't tell me to walk around it. It didn't say, Raleigh, don't do this. I just naturally was like, well, that's the path of the least resistance. I'm going to do it. So how you set up your structure will dictate types of behavior that you get. Okay? So just by changing surfaces, you can get different behavior. And that's why a lot of the mechanics of the gymnastics training format, which we talked about with training categories or skill categories, or any of those things, the KPIs, a lot of it is designed to dictate behavior. Because if you're pursuing a 9-9, behavior changes. If you're pursuing success, behavior changes. If you're pursuing height, if you're pursuing distance. And so using your space around you to get the result you want, the behavior will just naturally change. And so understanding how to dictate behavior just by how you use the space around you. It doesn't even have to be the words or the motivation. And then care has kind of three areas attached to it. Care, people do what they care. Okay, when I went to therapy, my therapist said, Raleigh, if the person doesn't call you back in 3 days, they don't care. That hurt. I was like, but I want them to care. But not everybody has to care. So care. Not everybody cares about what you care about. But care has a sense of urgency attached to it. So if you care about something, there's a sense of urgency. We need to do this thing. Okay? If you have care, you want it measured. Because when we care about something, we want to know that it matters. And so we want our cares to be measured. And that's why the KPIs are important, or what you're measuring is important, because people want something measured, because then they know that their care has value. And so that's like, I have a diamond ring. Well, how much was your diamond ring worth? It's like, oh, $10,000. It's like, whew, it's the big thing. So people attach care, value, to the things they care about. Maybe you don't care about that. So you go, well, he loves me a lot. And you go, okay, well, that's the value you attach to it, is the love a lot. So care is measured, okay? And then you have a feedback loop. And the feedback loop has to be active. When we care about something, we want to experience in the moment an active feedback loop. We do not want to be like, I ate some ice cream, but I can't taste anything. And then you wake up tomorrow morning, you're like, oh, chocolate ice cream. You don't want this delayed response. You want to eat the ice cream and taste the ice cream all in the same feedback loop. And so when you're dealing with a skill, or getting your students to do something, and you're sitting there having a conversation with them, and they're in the moment doing everything, and you're just chilling like this, you're not giving them the feedback loop to let them know what they need to care about. But the moment you're validating them, you're like, I love the straight arms. Oh, good job on getting those feet together. Love how you're transitioning over the blocks. Feedback loop, feedback loop, feedback loop. They're now hearing the care. I care about this, I care about this, I care about this, I care about this. By doing that, all of a sudden you elevate the need to care. They start caring more because you're caring more, because care is associated to a feedback loop, okay? If you're a kid and you're getting in trouble, you're doing something wrong, and everybody sees that you're doing something wrong, and nobody punishes you, or nobody calls you out on it, or no one disciplines you, whatever type of words you want to use, and all of a sudden, everyone sees that it's wrong. You did this thing. You just grabbed this expensive vase, smashed it on the floor, and then everyone looks at you and they just go, nah. But then 3 days later, you get in trouble for it. It's going to feel a little weird. You're like, I just smashed $1 million vase from a museum on the floor, and the museum didn't press charges. They didn't call the police. They didn't do anything. They just found me 3 days later, and then they did it. It's like, it feels weird. When people care, there's a feedback loop, and it's instantaneous, and it happens in the moment. And so that's how we drive care. When you get attention, behavior, care, notice A, B, C. When you have the ABCs, you have the magical experience. Because this is how we connect with the irrational human and the rationality of what we're doing. This is how we get their attention, which is so irrational. And this is how we drive the behavior, which is so irrational. And this is how we address what people care about, which is also irrational. Because a kid walks in your gym's like, I can do a backflip. And you're like, I don't think you can, because you can barely walk. So they have a irrational idea of what they care about. But you got to take that irrationality, and you've got to attach it to something that's concrete. And so that's where all the framework and the mechanics come together. When you start to understand this and you layer it on top of your conversation, it's not a big change, it's not a big tweak, it's just layering on top of your conversation, you just start to notice, like when you go into the idea of talking about the space in the conversation, and you realize that behavior is driven by how your space is laid out. Well, if you put your wedges so close to each other that when kids are walking back, two kids running back to the same way are colliding into each other, you just have a problem. When you space things out better, behavior changes, you have less problems. And so just by understanding your space and adjusting your space to drive better behavior, it's just less problems you're dealing with. When you address what kids care about, you're connecting on an empathetic level. You can say, this is what you care about, well, this is what I care about. Here's how we take your care and get it to go where I am. You're now doing the validation side of things. You're saying, I can see what you care about, but this is what I care about. And you're redirecting them onto your little boat sailing in your direction. That's addressing the care side of things. And if you don't have a care, then you're not going to have a sense of urgency. You're not going to want to measure it, and you're not going to have a feedback loop. But the moment you care about something, you're like, we got to do this today, like urgency, and you're wanting to measure it, and you're wanting to feedback loop them because you care. And so it's huge to put all of this together. You get a student that's not paying attention and is having a difficult time following directions or something like that, and you say, everyone put your hands on your head. Instantly they feel like the odd one out because they're like in la la land, they look around, they see that person's got their hands on their head, and that person's got their hands on their head. Eventually they want to fit in, because part of having attention is feeling a part of something. And so just by getting everyone else to put their hands on their head, someone else puts their hands on their head, they want to be a part of the group, they have no reason why. But all of a sudden you got their attention because they don't want to be distracted. Why? Because the distraction is costing them not fitting in. And there's more value fitting in with your group than there is being distracted. Oftentimes. Now, not everybody, but I'm just saying that's a layer. And so you go through these processes You go through these processes and you tweak it. This is the stuff you're playing with. This is the artistic side of becoming a coach or a leader or an instructor or a teacher, is you're finagling all this stuff, molding it and shaping it with your group. Every group looks a little bit different in these 3 areas, but this is where the magic starts to happen, where people start to come alive and they really start to put in their effort and energy to push their potential, and that's where things start to get exciting.